Welcome, Gunrunner.
Let's take a look at our development process. A sense of consolidated action along with character design and background is what is sought. Dynamic, beautiful images which exceed those of the prototypes and dazzle the player are SNK's primary goal. Game sound is what enlivens our video images. At SNK, we are always aiming to create the most effective, thrilling sound effects and music for our games. The rich sound capabilities of Neo Geo provides the composer with the opportunity to freely use his imagination and abilities to the fullest and give the player the feeling of truly being inside the world of the game. Finally, we'll take a look at the completion of Neo Geo software. Programming gives each image an exact number value. For various components, such as fine-tuning visuals within the game, a vast amount of technical knowledge is required. An analog creates crisp digital images. SNK incorporates the newest computer technology to enlarge the possibilities of our Neo Geo game base. At SNK, we take pride in our distinctive Neo Geo products, from production at our modern factory to delivery. Our automatic software PC board assembly system, our automated PC board printing system, our warehouse system, our distribution system, our strict quality control, our swift and precise delivery system. In these ways, SNK introduces the newest procedures and facilities to our unique production system. Based on this process, we can deliver high-quality products quickly and efficiently.
Cast your minds back to the early 90s for a moment and think about the home console that you coveted more than any other. I can pretty much predict the image in your mind is that of the Neo Geo, SNK's super advanced system that delivered exactly what it promised, the arcade in the home. While plenty of other systems over the years had promised arcade perfect gameplay in the home, this was never anything more than a marketing term designed to sell the respective hardware. It was rarely, if ever, actually true. Then the Neo Geo Advanced Entertainment System, or AES for short, came along. What made this different is that the console used the exact same hardware as SNK's existing Neo Geo multi-video system, a clever piece of arcade hardware that offered owners the ability to put up to 6 different games into a single cabinet. This unique feature was also a key economic consideration for operators with limited floor space, and saved them a great deal of money in the long run, as buying new games was far cheaper than purchasing a new arcade cabinet. With its games stored on self-contained ROM cartridges, you could easily change your selection of titles on the MVS and simply add new cards into the display to signify the changes. It was an enormous revolution for the coin-op industry and proved incredibly popular with arcade operators across the world. The Neo Geo was promoted as a 24-bit system, but in reality it was actually a 16-bit machine, as at its heart was a multi-roller 68,000 CPU, the same processor found in systems such as the Sega Mega Drive, Commodore Amiga and Atari ST. But SNK was smart and knew that by calling it 24-bit they already had a perceived advantage over their 16-bit competition. They weren't completely lying either, as the system did feature a 24-bit data bus and had an 8-bit Z80 coprocessor. I don't think I need to tell you that 8 plus 16 is 24, but I guess I just have anyway. Looking at the Neo Geo's technical specs, there's no doubting just how powerful it was for the time. But this performance did come at quite a big cost. In fact, the North American launch price was an eye-watering $649.99. That equates to just over $1,273 in today's money. The games followed along the same huge scale, being priced at $200 and upwards, depending on the ROM size. Despite the high prices, people still bought them, and over the whole of the Neo Geo's long lifetime, SNK managed to sell close to 1 million units of their home-based systems. When you consider the sales of the arcade hardware too, it proved to be a very profitable venture for the Japanese company.
100 Mega Shock Neo Geo! About time you got here! What's that supposed to prove? Talking to you! You're one of a kind. Everybody SNK.
By 1997 though, the Neo Geo hardware had been on the market for 7 years and was starting to look pretty long in the tooth. Its previously impressive technical abilities had long since been taken over by newer, more powerful home systems such as the Sony PlayStation, Sega Saturn and Nintendo 64. And indeed, many Neo Geo games had already appeared on these systems and played every bit as well. SNK knew that it was time to up their game. Nobody was impressed by 2D graphics anymore, and everyone was clamouring for 3D polygons and texture mapping. So the Osaka-based company announced that a replacement was on the way in the form of the Hyper Neo Geo 64. They were promising a true 64-bit processor alongside a powerful new GPU capable of pushing out 3D texture map polygons in up to 16.7 million colours. Take a look at the specs for yourself. The Hyper 64 certainly looked pretty good on paper. As before, the arcade hardware would arrive first and promise the same kind of cost-saving advantages, although each cabinet was now confined to just one game, making it slightly less attractive to operators. Then, around 6 months later, it would be followed by the home version with the stage already set for its arrival and a great deal of hype and publicity in place. This time there would be a few differences between the arcade and home versions, however. While the coin-op would utilise ROM cartridges as before, the home system was planned to operate from CD. The result of this would be some minor revisions to the home console hardware to better suit loading from compact disc. This also meant that the home-orientated version of the Hyper Neo Geo 64 would be priced far more competitively to its predecessor, with its games coming in considerably cheaper too. These games would remain exclusive to the arcades for a predefined period of time before being converted over to home use, meaning arcade operators wouldn't lose out. The Hyper Neo Geo 64 arcade system was released in September 1997, and the first title released for the system was racing game Road's Edge, with Samurai Showdown 64 and Fatal Fury Wild Ambition following soon after. None of these were particularly well received by the press, however, and all three titles seemed to be well behind similar titles of the time in both the visual and gameplay stakes too. It was rumoured that the home version of the machine would be bundled with the Fatal Fury game, although this was never actually confirmed. It seems likely, however, given that the franchise was one of SNK's most well-known and most popular back then, and had been a staple of the original Neo Geo console. With the Neo Geo Hyper 64 failing to make an impression in arcades, and the audience reaction to it being less than enthusiastic, SNK decided to delay the home version of the system until further notice. Just 2 years later, in 1999, the Hyper Neo Geo 64 was cancelled completely, being outlived by the original Neo Geo hardware. SNK continued to support the original hardware with new games right up until 2004, with technical support continuing through to August 2007. An incredible 27 years after the system's debut. This means that the Neo Geo received the longest official hardware support by its original manufacturer of any system ever. A pretty awesome achievement, I'm sure you'll agree. As an interesting point, one of the Hyper Neo Geo 64 games did see a release for another system, as the PS1 version of Fatal Fury Wild Ambition arrived in the latter part of 1999. This further fuels the rumour that this was set to be the first game in the home system, and rather than let that code go to waste, they simply ported it across to another CD-based system instead. Sadly, SNK have always stayed silent over the outcome of the home version of the Hyper Neo Geo 64, no doubt because they're still licking their wounds over the hardware's failure. No images or mock-ups of the console have ever been shown, and no prototypes of the hardware have ever been discovered by collectors either. While this is a shame, at least we can go back and play the original arcade hardware, and the games are slowly being introduced to MAME, so more people could experience them. Some clever people have also developed a way of playing the Hyper Neo Geo 64 games in the home too, as you can see here, but these are extremely expensive and hard to come by. I definitely think SNK did the right thing by cancelling the home console version of the Hyper Neo Geo 64. When you take into account the lacklustre games, underperforming hardware and stiff competition it would have faced at the time, most notably from the PlayStation juggernaut, you really can't imagine it being a success. They would have been much better off putting their resources into upgrading the original Neo Geo hardware instead. Believe it or not, SNK also planned, but ultimately cancelled, an 128-bit console too, called the Millennium. But that, as I so often say in these videos, is a story for another day. Before I go, I just want to give a special shout out to all my wonderful Patreons. Your continued support means so much to me, so special thanks to Funder Fundington, John DiLiberto, Carl Olsen, Mark Lawrence, Scott Maguire, Keith and Mr. Gaboto. If you don't subscribe to my Patreon already, then you're missing out on loads of great content, including exclusive videos, free downloads and early access content too. I hope you all enjoyed watching this video, and I'll see you all again with another story very soon.